Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. In the roll call, I am here. Jana is here.
Just like Dr. Holmstrom.
Yep, I'm here.
Alexa, I don't think is here. Christina's not here. Rosemary is here. And council member here, Jim, is not here. Okay, the approval of the agenda. I move that we approve the agenda. Any second? Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I now approval of the minutes, the meeting of April 11th, 2022. I move that we approve the meeting minutes of April 11th, 2022.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Have the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 13th, 2022. I move that we approve the minutes of the meeting of June 13th, 2022.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, public comments. Okay, we have comments from Al Hovey.
So two things. First thing is that at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I would encourage the parks to put out picnic tables under the trees in Windjammer Park. We're having some hot weather. If you go over to the toddler playground, there's a lot of great shade trees there with people sitting underneath them, but no picnic tables underneath them for them to sit at. Same thing over by the lagoon. There's a couple of big trees there that could use picnic tables. There's always people sitting under the trees, but there's not any picnic tables up there. So I would appreciate that. The second thing is that I would really encourage the planting of some shade trees in the park. I see we've got some more Gary oaks. I see that a couple of the trees that haven't been getting water have finally been removed because they died because they weren't getting any water. I would encourage the city to replace those with something that's going to have some shade and is going to grow fast, something like some big maples or something, and maybe put some over by the lagoon where there's a lot of folks sitting on the berms there, but they don't have any shade unless they bring it themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Al. Any park board member comments?
I have a comment. It's regarding the maintenance at Fort Nugent for the summer. A lot of the youth sports leagues continue to use Fort Nugent all summer long. And last year, with the lack of water, the fields just completely died out. There's still spots out there where the grass never recovered, and it becomes a giant dust bowl and a potential fire hazard when we get later into the summer and it's extra hot.
Thank you, Jana. Reports and discussion items. Windjammer Park Community Input Process.
So I have a little slide here. Sorry, I was just trying to share screen. Are you sharing screen or you
You can go ahead.
I don't want to conflict with you, but no, you're fine. I was just trying to get it to the right section. Okay. So where we're at with this process is we had 703 responses, which I did send out according to the request at the last meeting. One of the big efforts that's going on right now is we are compiling and categorizing the data. There were two areas that people could comment generically about things that they had concerns or questions about, improvements, future options, things like that. And in that, so with 703 people responding that way, there are a lot of comments that I'm going through and just making sure that those are sorted and compiled into different categories. So that is currently what we're doing right now. As that process gets finalized, I will be sharing the final data with council and putting that categorized list available for any, public comment response or public record requests that we get and things like that. So at this point, we're still compiling the data. Any questions about that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I put in a public records request for any raw or compiled data on this process and received a response this morning that there was no data, that there was nothing that would be responsive to my public records request. Obviously, if you have 703 responses, then you do have data that's responsive to my public records request. So rather than closing out my public records request, I would have expected that what was available was provided.
The 703. So what the reason that the records request was sent back with that comment is because we're still compiling the data. So as soon as the data is reviewed and compiled, that's what would be the response for your records request when that's available. So that's going to be a couple weeks out, if not, at least a month for us to be able to go through all that data. Because there's 703 responses. Out of the 703 responses, there are 2 columns of generic feedback that is being categorized.
I understand that, but that's not what the response that I received said.
What I can do is I can talk to our public records staffer and find out the details of the response you received and follow up on that.
Okay, the response I got says there are no, you have not located any responsive records. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, I will follow up on that.
Okay. Next item is discussion of bylaw revisions.
Let me stop share so you can share.
I was just gonna pull up the document so we can look at it. So, this is Mikhail Finkel. First of all, did the board members have an opportunity to look at the bylaws and have any suggestions? Otherwise, staff went through it and has some suggested revisions that I can pull up on the screen. It's hard to do this on a little computer.
Right. But we can see it on the big screen, so at least it's.
Okay, I got to share it screen.
Oh, you want me to do it?
No, I can get to it now. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. There you go.
Can everyone see that? Can I make this smaller? It's not. Okay, so the first part of it, I'm sorry, I can't see the section number there. Talks about the appointment of members. So, one of the questions staff had is there is a 5-member board. Is an alternate position needed? Have you used it in the past where you don't have a member available? I mean, does the board still want to keep the alternate seat?
I came in as an alternate,
Okay.
but I think everyone was there at the meetings I attended at that time. And then when someone left, then I became an official member.
Okay. So is that something we want?
We didn't have a situation at that time because everybody was coming. They were all in-person meetings and there were all 6 people were there. The only time I saw not all members there was when we started.
That would just be, I guess, one thing to think about before the board, whether you want to keep that alternate spot. I know that filling it was, the vacancy was held in with discussion of the student member.
Right.
You can see in this section too, it would be staff's recommendation that your youth or student member be a non-voting member of the board and not fill that alternate, because they would only vote, if they needed. So that would be staff's recommendation, and that's how we put it in this proposal. Going next down to terms. If you go back, this hadn't been updated since 1967, long time. So one of the suggestions we are going to make with the boards and committees, this is actually or a suggestion by a council member. So typically when you have a term, if someone leaves early, the person that fills that term should only fill it the short seat through whatever the end of the term is. At some point in time, they were getting filled for like an additional 3 years. So they weren't just filling the short seat, they were starting like a new term. So one of the things we're going to suggest with the terms committees is try to get them all on a schedule of like a January to March. That way, we don't have a lot of boards here, so it might be easier to track appointments and get people appointed if it was a January through December, still a 3-year term, but somehow get everyone on the same month to month with alternating years. Then the rest are just really some clerical changes. Was there anything about the powers or duties of the board that members, we didn't find anything much to change there.
Oh, and we also did the generic cleanup of from park board to parks board, because it was a little odd that we weren't saying the plural of park. We have many parks in Oak Harbor.
So I think another thing to discuss is one thing we'll be recommending for the boards with regard to chair, vice chair, and those other positions is that those are reviewed annually. So the board could vote annually if they want to have a new chair or, keep the same chair. At least it would be reviewed on a consistent basis. And then I think we need to, as a city, also talk about the secretary, because I don't really think anymore we have a secretary that's a board member that is actually doing the minutes. That's something that's, city staff is doing. So that section will have to be updated at some point.
Yeah, we did elect a secretary, but I don't think that's the one that left.
Oh, okay.
She moved away.
And I think, that's it. So there's not a lot in the bylaws, but those are some of the suggestions that we'd like to put forth to city council. And we do that, since all the boards are going through this process, it'll probably be towards the end of the year that we would submit these recommendations. So there's still time if something comes up in the meantime. So that was all we had. And I don't think we need a motion today. Maybe we'll finish that up and bring it back at a future meeting, and then you guys can put forth a motion.
Okay. Next is the presentation of the park board meeting video on YouTube.
Okay, so Cal, I believe it was you at the last meeting who had asked for us to start providing the information on YouTube, and it was something that we as staff were already working on. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was seeing this. So I just shared screen. When you go to the city's YouTube channel, you will actually see there is now an official playlist that is available for park board meetings. And you can go in here and actually see the meeting video. So what we're doing is taking this that we're recording and putting it into a video format. I'm also adding some informational slides at the beginning and end so that people have a reference point as to the information that's being presented. And also explaining, that this is a recorded meeting, etc. When you meet, all of that information. So this is the format to address that. Hal, is there anything we missed in that request? I think this covers it, but just want to make sure.
No, thank you very much. I have been requesting that for many years, so I appreciate that it's up there.
Should it say Parks Board?
Huh?
Shouldn't it say Parks Board? Not Park Board?
Well, right
No,
now, the
right now you are
bylaw,
Park, okay.
And that's why we're changing it, because it is a struggle for me as a communication staffer that I always have to edit it to say Park Board and not Parks Board, believe me. When we update the bylaws, I will be more than happy to go through and update that. So that's basically what I just wanted to share. Do any park board members have any comments or question as well? I just want to ask Hal because I know that he had brought that forward at the last meeting, so. Pretty easy to get to, made it accessible and all of that. So, and we're also sharing that on social media after the meeting when the video is complete.
Okay, next is the update on Parks and Recreation Director.
Yes, I presented the proposal to the city council at a workshop on the 29th. Got a little good input on it. I think it was overall favorable, so I have it on tomorrow's agenda with an ordinance change. Quite a lot of ordinance. I think there's about 6 sections that I had to update in our code to accommodate the Park and Rec, and we'll see whether the majority of council votes for it tomorrow. So move ahead. I think some of our other items will kind of be held up as we go along with getting that position filled and getting into some of the issues like the next item here, so that Tally can focus on the mowing and some of the basic things that were already talked about, trying to keep up with that. Or some of the comments here were interesting, we're not always fulfilling the expectations there. So we definitely want to focus on that. And we've got a lot of things on the plate with Harbor Heights proposal, Windjammer Park issues, and there's just plenty of other areas. So it would bring in the senior services and the Marina, but Marina already has a Marina Advisory Board. So the Parks and Rec Director, as far as you've seen him, that person, he or she, in this position would be focusing on the parks issues as far as what you would do, and then also provide support to the Harbor Master and Senior Services. Any questions?
Okay, next is the accessible playground.
Accessible.
Do you have the email?
Okay.
he's gonna read it.
Brian Stuckey, hi. So I want to start the conversation about having an accessible playground. So let me kind of give you the thrust of what that means. So we actually have a very large population of special needs kiddos in this city. I think most of us realize that with the Navy and the Accessible Families Program. So we have a very large percentage of special needs kids. I myself have a kid with autism. And kind of the thrust of it is my kid does what they call elopement. He likes to run off. Okay, so if you're a parent and you're kind of trying to sit there and watch your kid, it's kind of hard knowing that at any moment they could just dart off on you. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have any fully fenced playground. We have one on Heller that's got half of it, but the back is still open. And I could be wrong. Let me know if I am. I don't know a fully fenced one we have.
I believe you are right.
Okay, I could be wrong.
We have a lot of them too.
We have partial fencing on them, but
Yeah.
we don't have anything that is fully fenced all the way.
So I mean, that helps with some kiddos, like my kiddo that does that. But I mean, we could also expand it to other folks who have kids with disabilities that are different. We have 2 parks that are on the capital improvement plan. we have a ton of parks. It'd be nice to have one of them be more accommodating for kids with disabilities. Except short term, love to see something with a fence. Long term, it'd be nice to expand it, at least have one park where it's a different environment. I mean, as a family with a kid with autism, when I go to the normal parks, I know my kid might be a little rougher with other kids. I have to explain myself to the parents that are there. Hey, sorry, my kid has autism. To just have a place that's a safe space for kids with disabilities. We're all kind of parents in the same boat would definitely be something I think that our city could use. So I guess the ask is for this to be considered by the park board, maybe with staff's input on what that could look like, costs, find some way that we can get an accessible park, be that at least a fence, but preferably we could expand that to other things to allow for all sorts of kids with disabilities. I think would be a great thing.
I'm going to give my input. I've done this in other communities, and Brian brought it up, our council member Stuckey brought it up. The community I came from in a previous life was already kind of raising it. There's a lot of great equipment out there. I don't know what the accessible slides. There's just a lot of great equipment out there. I don't know how much we put it into our park system and areas there. I know there was a goal of doing a huge park, kind of like the one in Fort Nugent with all the things, but everything accessible, with all accessible equipment on it. So, and there's a lot of inclusivity with that, where somebody who's in a wheelchair can kind of wheel out there and get on it, but a regular kid can get on the same equipment, and it just creates an environment of equal, puts everybody on the feet. So certainly there's a lot of time and effort and funding in doing that, and fundraising and such to be possible for it. And the one that I had was a parent coming and advocated it for, and they said, fine, if you want to try to raise money. And she started raising money, and it's kind of, and they were looking at a particular playground to convert to accessibility. So certainly keeping it on a radar, especially when we go through the budget process. I have no problem with that, and we'll probably defer to the new, hopefully director position, the Parks and Rec, and that person's going to have a degree and very strong knowledge in parks, and can offer more than just myself as a generalist. And Sally, has been a practitioner for a long time and certainly has something, but I think it's important to have their input. But I think you're right, inclusivity, the fence issue, maybe that's something we can knock off of one in the park, knock off and think about. So that's certainly something we can possibly work into some of the budgets in our 2 or 3. I think we have about 3 or 4 in the budget process.
We have some that are needing to be brought up to standards too, so is there a good time to designate some of them, maybe potentially? And we have some really great contractors that we've been working with that have some ideas that I haven't even thought of, or any of us have thought of yet too. That'd be great to touch base with them and talk to them, and they can see out drawings of what they have to offer.
Yeah, there's some really great equipment out there. Some great
Sorry,
innovation.
I got to talk to the camera, I forgot. We have good contractors out there we could touch base with for information on this style playground, and they could help us come up with some ideas, even send out pictures and drawings of different ideas or things they've done maybe in other cities. So that would help us, determine whether that's something we want to do or not.
I know Island County Parent to Parent, I mentioned it to the executive director there, she'd be more than willing to help. By no means am I saying, let's get another park. I'm just saying with all the parks we have and some of them coming up, I agree, it would be a good time. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to be done in a month or even the end of the year. It's long-term vision. But I just want to get it on the radar, at least. So it's a conversation.
Yeah.
I think it might also be nice to consider parking needs for families who have those needs.
Sure.
You have more potential handicap parking or placards that you're dealing with. And so it's not a park that maybe has less parking. You actually need to have adaptive parking for that.
Sure.
The other thing is, as we're rolling out the camera project for security cameras, it would probably be wise that we include this park that we're modifying to meet these needs with those measures, because it is more likely that potentially they get through the gate or whatever, and it'd be nice to have those tools in place to see that and have some security that's added.
Agreed.
Those parks don't have the camera systems at the playground ones. Yeah.
But it might be something to think
Yeah,
about as
we
part
might
of
need to
this.
upgrade a little
If-
somewhere.
If we're doing the enhancements to work with our vendor and say,
Yeah.
what could we do that could assist with that? Because, you know, that is something to think of. My brother, you know, I have a nephew who's on the spectrum of several things, and my brother's in law enforcement, and it's something that he's always looking for as well, is where do these parks fit? And luckily in LA, there's a couple of spaces, but it's always a concern. And they have had to involve the police department a couple times, and it was nice to have those resources.
The fencing part, the only thing that I would say that we gotta think about on that one is nowadays with how, we look at the schools, what they've done as a prime example. When they fence them off for security reasons and different people, they don't want certain individuals in. Gotta have escape routes for the kids and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit there we should pay attention to, I think,
Oh,
too.
absolutely. Yeah, you certainly just can't just throw a fence around the whole thing, but even the one that's partially, because there's one on Heller that's partially, but the back, I mean, it just goes to everything. But if there's like one place or even two, I mean, you can monitor that a whole lot easier than any direction they can dart off on, so.
For sure.
Okay, thank you. Is our future meeting date and time?
I put this on there, only because at the last meeting, I had a couple of questions and I haven't, that was my first meeting. But doing the minutes, people asked, are we still gonna do it in the afternoon? You know, because that was changed for the student position, or are we going back to, is it 11 a.m., 11:30? So I just wanted to bring it up to just confirm the date and the time of the meeting, for the members. So,
The afternoon works better for me.
okay.
Jana, what do you say?
So I can make the 3 to 4 work. It just, that's the time when schools get out. So I need to make sure that someone's going to be there to pick my kid up from school or pick the children up from the bus stop. So if we aren't going to have a student right away, the mornings definitely would work better for me, but got a good support system, so I can make it work if need be.
And Rosemary, you have any comments on that?
I would prefer the 11 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
I can't make
Can you hear me?
comment
Yes, we heard you, Rosemary.
for staff, but the park and rec director could do. And I was attending before for the conflict and stuff. Didn't attend for about a year, so.
Do we need to poll the other members or?
Yeah, we could. We just do an email poll.
That's what I'm wondering. We could just send out an email and ask the question.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay, that was it. Okay, I move till we adjourn.
Second.
And all in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. It's the shortest meeting in history.